Life in the islands is a one-of-a-kind existence. The weather is inviting, as well as the sea, the land, and the people. Normally, life is calm, relaxed, laid back. But as the saying goes, in everyone's life, a little rain must fall. But sometimes, that rain is literally too much. It is difficult to think about typhoons, fires, epidemics, terrorism, but we must. If we think about these disasters now, while life is calm and relaxed, we can prepare ourselves for when the worst happens. We cannot stop disasters, but by taking simple actions ahead of time, we can protect our families, our property, and ourselves.
We were expecting a normal typhoon. This was super. Tidal was a super typhoon.
We were heading in the path of the typhoon. We were sort of going toward each other.
I was out in the open sea on the ship Voyager.
Hell broke loose and the roofs of pretty much all the buildings at the high school were taken off.
We were battered so much with this thing that I know this is a terrible moment in our lives.
My house in Madrid was totally swept away.
In April 2004, Typhoon Tidal struck the main island of Yap. The Yap state government issued warnings, but many ignored them. But those that did not ignore the warnings had precious little time to prepare.
In times of disasters, that's when we would kick in what we call the command post. And that's when the Office of a Disaster comes in and work hand in hand with us.
The NOAA station in Yap initiated the typhoon warning. The Disaster Coordination Office monitors the warnings.
We'll monitor warnings. We have a 72 hours warning, 48 hours, 24 to 48, and then 12 to 24.
Peter Karamfel was the Public Information Officer at the time.
We had to be very precise with the information that we were putting out, just to make sure that the information we were putting out was accurate and that we did not create panic among our listeners.
Most Yappies were taking precautions. Many went to shelters.
I stayed at the St. Mary's School. I had a VHF with me at that time, and we were communicating with the command post.
I was one of the lucky ones who went to the command post.
I moved my family to the high school.
And I thought that maybe the hospital would be a safe place for my family.
For those having trouble getting to a shelter, the Department of Public Safety jumped in to help.
There are certain area designated as shelter area, and we had to make sure that those people will be transported to those areas.
The radio station played a critical role announcing the latest information.
Every 15 minutes is what we normally do. Make sure the information is back out repeating the same information if we have to. Otherwise, it'll come out with a different update version in every 15 minutes.
The DCO, or Disaster Coordination Office, strongly recommends that all typhoon preparations be completed at least 12 hours before the typhoon is predicted to strike.
From 24 to 12 hours, everything must be, the last minute preparation must be done. But within 12 to 0 hours, that's very short. Everything should be in a safe place within that period.
I didn't know what was happening outside. Then I just sort of waited there. There was no more power, so I started, looking around for candles, and because I knew I was going to be in for a long night. In the morning, we thought that, everything is going to calm down, because from 10 in the evening all the way to morning, probably this one is already far.
Rain was coming in through the windows, even though the windows were shut.
Tin roofs flying around.
The radio, the TV, and the computer went out.
We were not able to communicate at all.
Inside where we were staying is just flooded with water.
Trees falling.
The place was flooded.
Each group of people is on their own.
The main island of Yap was heavily damaged. Almost every building, hundreds of homes were destroyed completely. Hundreds more were damaged too much to return the next day.
I think 90% of the vegetation and buildings, and so we were in a very desperate state.
The extensive damage caused many to stay in shelters longer than they expected.
We lived in an apartment, and after the typhoon, the apartment was no roof, so we couldn't move back.
I think we were there for approximately 5 days.
We spent 6 nights in the hospital.
There was a home here before Tidal. It was Sister Margot's home. It was not destroyed by the wind of the typhoon, but swept away by the sea.
The sea is, I didn't realize the sea is that strong until my house was taken down. The sea is really strong.
The Mudbridge area of Yap was home to hundreds of other islanders. Mudbridge, also on the coast, was devastated. Even years later, only a few homes remained.
What we found there was, the place empty, no more house.
Critical food and water sources were also damaged or destroyed.
Breadfruit trees and coconut trees and those kind of things got blown down. Bananas, they're all damaged.
We know that the taro patches can easily have salt in it.
Some of the water sources on the island, like the wells, surface water, and got contaminated from typhoon debris.
The telephone system was also heavily damaged.
The tidal surge had done a lot of damage to telephone cables on coastal areas, and as a result had damaged most of the telephone lines.
There was one thing that caught nearly everyone by surprise, even those who had plenty of experience with typhoons.
When your outhouses has been blown away, in Yap we have little huts for cooking and stuff. It's been blown away, and you don't have any drinking water. The wells are either so infested with mosquitoes, or you can't
go to the bathroom. That's where I realized that, man, it's tough, and you can't go anywhere behind a tree to relieve yourself because there's no tree, there's no leaves. So you can walk for miles into the woods, but it's just as well you stand by the road and close your eyes and take a leak or.
So what can you do to get ready? The survivors of Typhoon Tidal have some advice.
First, a sturdy place to stay, and secondly, something to feed yourselves and your children when the typhoon is gone.
Canned goods, some ramen.
Canned meat, biscuits.
Try to get as much food as they can get from their taro patches and gardens.
Ice chests also.
Tune into the radio.
People need to keep their cool.
Kerosene, stove,
Bring enough fuel for the stove.
lighter, matches.
Cooking stuff like pots, plates.
If there's a typhoon coming, you need to go buy some water.
Water.
Water, clean water to drink. It was hard for us to get clean water right after the typhoon.
Right after Tidal, it was dry for a total of almost a month.
It took a while for them to bring water. And then once it get on island, it took a while to distribute.
We need fluorescent lights, those that we don't use power because we cannot run the power anymore.
Candles.
The candles are really hot, so I would recommend flashlight.
Batteries for flashlights.
Clothes, but not everything. I just estimated enough for, let's say, a week's supplies.
If you are taking medicine, take it with you to the typhoon shelter.
These are very simple things. It's just a matter of doing it. But for those who ignore it, they start talking about it after the Tidal. It's too late. And next time, don't sit back. You gotta stand up, do something.
Typhoons such as Tidal affect whole communities and require whole communities to prepare for them. Fire is another type of disaster that can affect anyone. While fires don't generally affect whole communities, they can be disastrous to your family. On November 9, 2008, Sonel Johnson and his family were attending Sunday services when he received a phone call that would change his life.
Our neighbor, she called Lori, my daughter, saying that, "Where are you? You have to call your folks, their house is burning." She didn't know that she's talking to her in Yap, so she called from Yap to us. For us, it takes about hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes driving. It's at the end of the island. I mean, it's like coming from one end to the other. So by the time we get there, there was nothing left.
Sonel noticed that the windows in his son's car were broken, and curiously, that it had moved.
What they did was, when the house was burning, they broke the glasses to get in, to push the car out. When they break all the glasses, they find they cannot move it because they need a key to move it. So they were just pushing it a little bit away, and then that's it. But we lose the glasses, the front and the sides. Everything we have in our life is in there, so everything went down the drain.
Fortunately, no one was hurt. The following tips will help you stay safe during a house fire. Get everyone out of the building. If someone is on fire, get them to stop, drop, and roll on the ground. Pick a meeting place before a disaster, like the road, a tree, or a neighbor's house, and meet there. Call the fire department or police. If you cannot, ask a neighbor. Do not go back into the house. Sunel has more tips.
I might have left the spare key with somebody, or have somebody, outshit while I'm gone. If I had known, maybe things would be different. But I mean, if I have to do it second time and know that it will be burned, I would be much more prepared.
Let's put this in there, man.
Alright.
Oh, hold up. Let me get the tire out first. I'll try it again. Get in there.
Okay.
Alright. High five, buddy.
Let's go, driver. What are you waiting for?
Alright.
So, did you call those girls last night?
Girls, man. They're at the beach waiting on you, man.
What about Marla? Is she there?
I don't know, but Rochelle's there.
What are we stopping for, driver?
Hold up, I think we got a flat tire. Yep,
What?
we do have a flat tire.
It's alright. We have a spare tire in the back. Hold up, man. Let me get it. Oh, shoots, man. I left it outside the house. In December 2008, an unusual tidal surge struck all over the FSM.
That thing was so sudden that we didn't have much time to prepare the public on that incident. We started announcing around 9:45, and then later on, say around almost 10, there was a call came in from Damansak informing that the waves are pounding already on the land. From that point, I approached the governor again to ask him if we could mobilize our task force. It was a real bad, I must say, a nightmare for some because they were sleeping the time when the waves were pounding into their windows and broke off the walls, and it was a real scary thing. There were businesses, there were residential areas that were, inundated with the water. The waves were like, series of waves coming in one after another and piling up until it reaches around 18 feet high. We evacuated all those people that live along the coastal area. We had to keep them up there until like 4 days. The people must understand right there that if they know that there's a tidal wave comes in, they must always know and understand that they need to run to a higher elevation and listen to the radio, because we will be announcing our eyes the surge or the waves, and they must stay above at least say 25 feet above.
Keep in mind, your house may be flooded or damaged, so you may need food and water for 1 or 2 days. And take your mobile phone if you have one.
Hey, you two, get ready. There's a fire. We have to go. We have to go. Hurry up, hurry up. Get ready fast. Hurry up, hurry up. Let's go, let's go. Move out. Okay, here it is. Here's the fire. Here it is. Here it is.
I get the hose. I get the hose. Get that hose ready. Roll it out. Roll it out.
Hook it up. Hurry. Hook it up. Hook it
Okay,
up.
it's ready. Okay, it's ready. Turn on the water.
Turn on the water. Turn on the water back there. Where's the water? There's the fire hydrant doesn't work.
What happened to the water?
What are you? Where's the water? Where's the water?
Where's the water?
This fire hydrant doesn't work.
Disease can be caused by many things: virus, infection, diet, just to name a few. A disaster like the 2008 Tidal surge or Typhoon Tidal frequently leads to another disaster.
One of the things that occurred in 2004 with Tidal was there was a dengue outbreak immediately after. And that happens frequently, you know, when you have all that kind of destruction, rubble around, rain, a lot of water sitting there, mosquitoes really increase, and so you can get a lot of vector-borne illness.
Dengue is a virus that is spread from mosquitoes to people, and it is only spread from mosquitoes to people, although if someone is sick with dengue and a mosquito bites them, they can take the dengue from that person and make another person sick. The most important thing that you can do to protect yourself from dengue, which can be a very serious disease, is to clean up around your home to get rid of any potential sites where the mosquitoes can breed. For instance, empty coconut shells, barrels of water, anything that can collect water in and around the house.
Empty can, you know, just beside the house. We have to throw all those things, even tires and what makes some water in order for the mosquitoes to lay eggs.
How do you know if you have dengue? What are the symptoms?
If you suspect that you have dengue, which is usually a fever with a headache, sometimes a rash, you should go see your doctor or healthcare provider, because they can make sure that you are treated well, but also can make sure that no more mosquitoes can bite you and then carry the infection to your loved ones.
Health officials the world over are very concerned with a disease called avian or bird flu. Fortunately, it does not exist in Micronesia yet.
Bird flu, or highly pathogenic avian influenza. It's an influenza virus found in a variety of birds, ducks, or chickens. So far, this disease seems to be only transmitted directly from close contact with infected birds, which are usually sick themselves.
There is potentially a much larger problem with bird flu if it starts to spread from human to human.
If it evolves to the point where now it can go humans to humans, it may develop into the type of pandemic or worldwide flu event like the world saw back in 1918, where millions of people died worldwide.
We haven't had any in Micronesia so far, but there is cases in Asia like Indonesia And you know, we are just next neighbor to these countries, so we're worried.
It's important to know that bird flu is not the same as H1N1 or swine flu.
The 2009 pandemic influenza is caused by this H1N1, which was called before swine flu. Bird flu is more serious than influenza H1N1 because it kills more people. About 60% of people who got infected die from it.
While sharing information is crucial, it is difficult for other islanders.
The hard thing, for instance, with avian influenza is that birds, can bypass Yap proper, land on Europic or some isolated island in our state, and people could get sick there. And so that's where we really need good surveillance throughout, the state and throughout FSM, not just at our main hospital centers.
The EpiNet system was created to keep an eye on infectious diseases throughout the Pacific region, including Micronesia.
Each island has its EpiNet team, and you're basically the team that looks for outbreaks, infectious outbreaks, so you're doing surveillance, but also if you do identify an outbreak, then the response to that outbreak. If, for instance, there's an outbreak and we're able to identify it early, let's say if it was a really dangerous outbreak on an island, we might be able to isolate it to that island and prevent other people from getting sick.
There are several things you can do to stop disease from spreading.
Some things that you can do to help prevent an outbreak or infectious disease outbreak is one, cleaning up standing water, hygiene, trying to make sure that you're keeping yourself and family members clean.
Washing your hands and maintaining good hygiene are very important. I would say, if nothing else, washing your hands is the most important thing you can do to prevent yourself from getting an infection of any kind, pretty much.
Making sure your food sources are clean, and also making sure that your food is put in a place where rodents and other animals can't get to it. Oftentimes they carry disease, and if the food is left around where people are sleeping, the disease can be shifted from the rodents to people. Of course, the last thing is drinking water. Very important. Humans, will die if we don't have good water to drink in just a day. So it's important that after a disaster, you start looking at how you're going to be able to get drinking water.
While drinking water, if it's there's a possibility of contaminated water.
Each situation will be different, and so it's important to listen to the public health authorities who will have the most up-to-date information on the situation.
If somebody gets sick in the family, they can isolate that person, put in another room. We tend to forget how very important those things, even though they're small things, it can be very important in like a pandemic flu.
You are listening to V6MS FM 89.5. Announcement to the general public. Due to our limited water supply and the dry season we are experiencing, PUC has now closed all water supplies throughout the island to save its remaining water for emergency purposes only.
Stefano!
There will be no water services for the public for at least 1 week.
Stefano! Oh yes! I can't believe this! What? They say that the water gonna close for 1 week.
I repeat, there will be no water services for the public for at least 1 week. In the meantime, the public is advised to be more conservative and use their water wisely.
I don't have problem with that. Santua just fill up my water. And I don't need anything. I think I have my bag of water there. Come see. See. Now what are we gonna do?
Man-made disasters are less common, but no less dangerous.
Chemical warfare or terrorism or oil spill, these are the events that we must really learn how to handle.
In December 2008, a suspicious envelope was sent to the governor of each FSM state.
I was alerted by the governor's clerk that there's an envelope that filled with white powder only. It was just a white powder. We don't know what kind of white powder is that, but what we did was we secured these premises, evacuated everybody, and called in all the lab techs with the public safeties to see if they could figure out, do something about it.
But Mervina says she is ready if it happens for real.
I am ready anytime from now on.
The sea can cause great damage to houses and buildings, but the sea also poses another danger.
We have had too many who were unfortunate to be lost at sea.
Most of our cases of the maritime search and rescue is happen either engine problems or they run out of gas. You know, when the school is on and it's good fishing, then people forget to check how much fuel left for them to get them back safely at home. My most recommendation to the fishermen, and especially myself when I go out fishing, I always have to be done fishing for that day. I still have 6 gallons of gas left as reserve. Got a good supply of water with you, food if necessary, but water is very important that you take along with you, and a flashlight.
Safety items are not necessarily expensive or complicated.
We always recommend that they took a little piece of mirror for them because it's really it's reflective and it can be seen from the aircraft that conducting the search.
Take some copra with you or some coconuts. You have water and meat at the same time to sustain you. You get lost.
An emergency situation can happen at any time for almost any reason. The most important thing to do is talk with your family and make a disaster plan.
You know, whether father, mother, kid, everybody together, work on a plan, a disaster plan. If things comes up, then they know what to do.
Each family must have their own checklist, things that are required or needed for, almost every disaster incidents. First aid kits in our houses. We must have food prepared adequately for if there's a typhoon, like biscuit, for example, canned meats for some, and water, adequate water supplies.
Making sure that if you need medications, you have extra supply of them.
Your passports and your birth certificates might be in a Ziploc bag somewhere.
Practice whatever we have in the plan so that when it does happen, we really do know what to do.
Flashlight.
Where are we going to rendezvous? How can we communicate with each other?
A small transistor radio for them to monitor when there's an incident is in progress and what are the procedures that they must follow.
Lastly, I would just say you stay healthy and stay fit so you can respond better when the time comes.
Your family's plan should also address what happens after the emergency.
So you may not have access to the things you're used to, buying food, refilling your electricity, things like that. If the water stops running, there may not be anyone to start it again. Those sorts of things are important to take into consideration for planning for a disaster of any kind. there may be no help available from off-island for weeks or potentially even months. And that means no food shipments, no fuel shipments, things like that. So many people may have to adopt different behaviors, go back to some of the old ways of growing their food, getting food more locally, walking instead of driving, things like that.
Ryan William has some final advice.
It's best to prepare and take things serious for a change.